Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've made it through most of this week's books. Now on to, the non-Batman related DC books. Kicking things off, we've got Justice League Incarnate number 4. So, where we'd left off, Justice League Incarnate had managed to regroup after being flung throughout the multiverse. And Dr. Multiverse made a stunning point, had come to a stunning realization that in order to save the multiverse, Darkseid had to win. Which, of course, shocked all of the members, all of her teammates to their core. So we begin with a brief history of the DC Universe. And to be completely honest, this would actually sound really cool read by Kate Blanchett. Because it feels like her narrated prologue from the beginning of Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring. In the beginning, nothing and everything was the same thing. A single black infinitude. Cold and dark for so very long that even the birth of the burning light was imperceptible. But the light grew, and soon everything was no longer nothing, and the darkness screamed. And then, this caused an imperceptible flaw in what was once the immaculate perfection of the light. In that instant, the multiverse was born. The very start of the eternal push and pull of the great darkness and the light that ultimately culminated in a crisis on infinite Earths. Marnovu, one of many created by the light to monitor the multiverse. The Anti-Monitor, one of many cursed by the great darkness to obliterate the multiverse. The Monitor gave his life to activate the multiverse's immune system, natural dimensions known as superheroes, to combat the threat of the Anti-Monitor. But victory came at a cost greater than the disease, and what was once a vast and infinite multiverse died, giving birth to just one single universe, and the light was weakened by the loss. The Great Darkness took advantage of this and attacked, and everything almost became nothing once again, until the truce was brokered by the unlikely superhero of them all, Swamp Thing. The light would no longer shine as bright, and the Great Darkness would slumber and no longer attempt to extinguish it. A compromise of near-perfect harmony, or so it would seem. The Great Darkness continued to exert its influence as it slumbered. Avatars and puppets all working to weaken the new universe and extinguish the light. Some examples shown here are Magog, Extant, Superboy Prime, and Mr. Mind. Each of them unaware of their connection to a larger will. Ultimately, these relentless attacks culminated in another crisis that forced the lone universe to evolve into what we know now as our new multiverse, breaking the truce between the great darkness and the light. Monitors were dispatched by the light to contain and limit the new multiverse, an orrery of 52 worlds in hopes of slowing the great darkness's awakening, but it was inevitable, as was Darkseid. One of the few aware of the existence of the great darkness, Darkseid was instrumental in stopping the Anti-Monitor in the first crisis. The god of all evil, Darkseid understood a truth about the great darkness that few ever would. It cares not for good or evil, life nor death. The great darkness only wants nothing to be everything once more. So Darkseid manipulated prophecy and destiny to trigger a final crisis. All designed to draw out the great darkness so the god of evil could truly control everything. There was only one thing he didn't count on. His scheme succeeded, but at the cost of his own life. Batman, in the end of Final Crisis, shot Darkseid with a specialized bullet that could actually, As the multiverse was at its weakest, in a moment of lonely silence, right before a desperate Hail Mary to save it with a wish on a miracle machine, the great darkness revealed itself. Through Mandrak, the first monitor and first corrupted by the dark. Once again, a monitor activated a multiverse's natural immune system to protect it from the absolute enemy. The last monitor, Nix 010, super judge of all evil and son of Mandrak. Mandrak was defeated, the miracle machine healed the multiverse, and the Great Darkness finally realized who its true enemy was. Superheroes. Earth Zero, at the center of the multiverse, contained the prime versions with variations of these heroes emanating out into the surrounding universes. The Great Darkness spread its influence across the cosmos and found a being of great power. It cursed the quantum life form with the task of weakening the heroes of Earth Zero by stealing time from their universe, the New 52. Elsewhere, the right hand of the Great Darkness, once used to form a truce with the light, became something new. The empty hand grew an army of gentry from the carcass of the old multiverse to test the variant superheroes of the surrounding Earths. The Super Judge faced off against the gentry as they invaded our multiverse, only to be corrupted by them and the Great Darkness. But not before SOS was sent out to the many Earth superheroes who banded together to fight the gentry head-on as Justice Incarnate. As the universe surrounding Earth Zero endured in the crucible of crisis, the last now corrupted monitor opened Darkseid's tomb and freed him from death. But Darkseid had other plans and began a long work of reassembling his godhead. The superheroes managed to save Nix 010 and quarantine the gentry to the universe of Earth 7. There, the gentry labored to complete the Oblivion Machine, to undo the wish once made upon the Miracle Machine. The Great Darkness then turns its attention back to Earth Zero, and there began the Metal Wars. The demon Barbatos, avatar of the Great Darkness, and its Dark Knights almost succeeded in sinking Earth Zero into the unknown horrors of the secret Dark Multiverse. But from the demon's failure, its darkest night ascended. And while he was ultimately defeated by the superheroes of Earth Zero, the multiverse was fundamentally changed forever. Earth Zero was no longer the center, replaced by two new Earths and their universes sharing that spot. The mysterious Elseworld remaining undiscovered, while Earth Omega was actually a fragment of the Great Darkness imprisoned by the all-powerful Quintessence. With his godhead fully reassembled, the one true Darkseid killed the Quintessence and seized control of Earth Omega. From this new seat of power, Darkseid used the Flash to crack open our multiverse so he could take control of the Great Darkness and prevent it from turning everything into nothing once more. And then just as the Incarnate came along and messed everything up. And as Barry Allen's velocity caused the multiverse to rupture, President Superman broke Darkseid's machine that was binding both Barry and the stress point to Earth Omega. Barry was pulled into what lies beyond and probably into the clutches of the Great Darkness, while the crack itself relocated to Earth 8. The multiverse gave Dr. Multiverse her powers to protect and heal it. It made her just in case something like this ever happened. It's why she's been so driven to seal off the crack, with or without Barry. She just didn't know it. When she finally had the chance to do it, she wasn't powerful enough, and she's only able to contain the crack inside her, maybe not for long. However, it's given her cosmic insight, which is why they had to come to where they're at. She sees all the questions and all the answers are the same. Darkseid must win. And so, the Earth they're on, being Earth Omega, but the members of Justice Incarnate disagree with Dr. Multiverse's statement. And as Batman after Batman suggests that Justice Incarnate get far away and talk things over sensibly, the massive boom tubes open, and all of Darkseid's armies appear. His generals, his parademons, his furies. Calabac and Grail report of the on the fact that the House of Heroes crashed and they could not get the monitor technology out of it, which apparently is crucial to the plan. Um, Batman goes to help Dr. Multiverse and pulls a syringe from his utility belt, though President Superman asks what's in it, though he knows that Thomas is lying. There's no sedative. However, Batman has been corrupted by the great darkness. Darkseid explaining the great darkness has him. His connection to a fallen reality made him the perfect vessel for the darkness. And he explains that the end is not what he seeks. The end is not what the great darkness seeks, only the eradication of all beginnings. Darkseid uses the Omega beams to turn Flashpoint Batman into the pile of ash. Darkseid then takes the crack of the multiverse and goes to deal with the Great Darkness itself. The League just talk things out, and they eventually follow Darkseid to Earth 7, where he and his forces are dealing with the Gentry. Darkseid makes himself as big as the Great Darkness and plunges the crack of the multiverse into the Great Darkness's chest. Which is to a degree exactly what the Great Darkness wanted. The Great Darkness now has the crack. The Great Darkness grows even larger and steps on Darkseid, seemingly killing him. The League arrive, find the remains of the House of Heroes, but and basically let the Gentry and Darkseid's forces duke it out while they make sure everything's okay. But they're soon discovered by the darkness corrupted versions of their allies, which is where the issue ends. I'm really liking Justice League Incarnate. I mean, seriously. It bums me out. I think this is actually just a mini-series, so I'm kind of bummed out by that because I've really been liking it. But I'm pretty sure I've stated before, I'm a big fan of multiverse-related stuff, so yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got One Star Squadron number 3. Where we left off, Power Girl had basically pulled off a coup at Heroes for You. At the Heroes for You offices, Superman shows up. And he explains he has some concerns. Number one thing being that turning heroes into employees cheapens heroism. But apparently Heroes for You is the only hero association that turns a profit, which is the only reason it exists. And without Heroes for You, a lot of struggling heroes would be out of work. With one of the board members saying that most of them would be out of the hero game altogether. Superman thinks about it for a second and says that that's the problem masquerading as the solution. The other board member says everything's connected. Yeah, the app is described by another as 911 for superheroes. But Superman's going to suggest that the Hall of Justice revoke their endorsement of Heroes for You. But Power Girl's running the office. And Red Tornado's talking with Minuteman. And apparently, but he's got one last chance for Minuteman. Apparently, Minuteman was asked for specifically. All he has to do is show up, sign a few autographs. And Red Tornado simply says, show up to it, do a good job, and, they'll talk. So, Red Tornado looks out at the office, though. Off the coast of Ireland, the hero Jack-o'-lantern goes to rescue survivors of a plane crash. When his phone goes off, and he's been apparently he has a request. And he goes for the request, leaving everyone in the water. Superman shows up the next day at the Heroes for You office, talk about what happened, and states that he is going to recommend the Hall of Justice withdraw its endorsement from Heroes for You, effective immediately. The head of the board explains there are two options, though. They either sell the company or find a scapegoat. But they've got to act fast before the Hall of Justice makes this announcement. But back at the office, Red Turner is thinking about his time with the company, how Manhunter brought him in, and then one day Manhunter got called to talk to the board. When he came back, he packed up his office and passed the job along to Red Tornado. And then Red Tornado gets a call from the board. So he goes. Well, for the next day. So first he's trying to help Gangbuster get back on his feet. Then he gets home and he's trying to keep his anxiety about being at the board to himself, but he lets it out. Explains that he may be out of a job as of the next day. So he goes to the board. Apparently they've gotten an angry complaint signed by pretty much the entire office. And that's actually, the board loves it. Tornado gets informed of the Hall of Justice is about to withdraw its endorsement. Projections show that earnings are going to soften, which is why they need to find a buyer before the news becomes public. And they need Red to help them. And explaining that in order to sell the company, they need a lean portfolio, so they need to cut costs down to a bare minimum. So layoffs. And it's explained that, he doesn't have to worry about making these people hate him. They already hate him. But they have one request. Fire Power Girl first. Loose lips sink ships, after all. She's a tattletale and cannot be trusted. And that is where the issue ends. Oh boy. I really feel like this is like a dark counterpart to Blue and Gold. like dark in a more, not dark in a edgy, gritty fashion, but dark in a, like Blue and Gold is more lighthearted, fundamentally lighthearted. Yeah, you get kind of the darker side. You kind of see the not so great side of Booster and Beetle's lives, but it's not as depressing as the darker side, the not so glamorous part of the Heroes for You heroes. So yeah, the two make for a great juxtaposition, I would say. Anyway, moving on to our next book, in fact our last book for the week, we've got Dark Knights of Steel, number 4. Where we left off, it seemed war was brewing between the Kingdom of Storms and the Kingdom of El. In the lands of Magnus, a piece of green glowing rock has been found, and Alfred, there with Bruce, places it in a box where it can't harm Bruce. And Alfred then tells him, we learn about when the elves arrived. They had carved out a life for themselves, but there was a volcano. And so Laura and Jor-El came up with a, basically figured, okay, this is how when it erupts, this is what will happen. Jor-El took his findings to the king's advisor, Alexander Luthor, who burned said findings. Jor-El went to speak with the king, King Thomas, and they said, "Hey, I gave your, I gave your man here my, proven estimates of what would happen should the mountain, if the mountain erupts." And Luther states that he read the ancient records. The mountain has always been angry and has never threatened them. And, well, Luther also consulted the stars. And then the volcano erupts. Laura and Jor-El do what they can to save as many people as possible. It helps that with King Thomas's blessing, as it kind of helps that none of their weapons can do anything to the elves. And they save who they can. And Luther is exiled. But he found, apparently, he was banished, as his areas had nearly doomed the kingdom. However, they would later learn that the mountain contained more than potential destruction. It contained a glowing green rock. But Luther wasn't seen again until the death of the day the Waynes died. King Jefferson learns of what's happened, and wants to see if this is if maybe this is prophecy. But as for Martha and Jor-El, it was a moment of weakness, and but then Bruce was born, and it didn't matter to Thomas. Cal and Bruce became fast friends, and then one day the Waynes got into a carriage and were heading off when there was an explosion, a green explosion. The Green Man is truly revealed to be a combination of Lex Luthor, the Joker, and with apparently a Green Lantern ring. But with Martha's dying breath, she asks that the elves basically take over the kingdom, and raise Bruce. They agree. And Alfred gives Bruce some advice, explaining that despite what he's been told, Bruce is still the son of Thomas and Martha Wayne. It's just he's also something more. And Bruce needs to stop thinking he's not worthy of them. That they were hardly perfect people. None of us are. So they're going to try and prevent a war. And that is where the issue ends. This has honestly just been a great series. I mean, this and Dark Ages really, I feel like, really show how good Tom Taylor is with just crafting complete alternate universes like that. Those two plus Deceased. I mean, Taylor knows what he's doing when it comes to alternate universes. But anyway, that's to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.